Pre-algebra lesson number 6. This is reading and writing decimal numbers, adding and subtracting decimal numbers, and rounding decimal numbers. I think another way that you could think of this lesson is it's all about decimals. So, let's start with decimal place values. This is something we need to understand. So, right here in this chart we have the decimal point right in the center. Everything to the left is as normal. We have the units or ones, tens, hundreds, then we have thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, then millions, right? So the place value seems to go that way. The key thing with the decimal place values is if we go to the right, the first unit is not the ones or units place. It is the tenths place. So that's something that can throw someone off, especially since we've been used to going in groups of threes, with the groups of threes being 1, 10, 100, 1, 10, 100, 1, 10, 100, etc. If we go to the right, we're not starting with 1, 10, 100. We start with tens, hundreds, thousands. Then we have 10,000s, hundreds, 100,000s, then millions, right? So it kind of works a little counterintuitively. So if you can think of the decimal point as your ones, that might help you, but that's still a little strange because the decimal point's not actually a place value. The real thing that we have to learn is to shift gears. When we go to the right of the decimal point, our first place is not the oneths place, it is the tenths place. So we have 1/10, 1/100th, 1,000ths, 1/10,000ths, 1/100,000ths, 1/1,000,000ths. And that's how that goes. So if we can remember to start from tenths and then we count our way up, we can get to the proper place value that way. So this is a chart you need to learn, memorize, and the key to understanding it is starting at tenths, not oneths, because oneths is not a thing. Now, let's go on to reading and writing decimal numbers. The key to reading and writing decimal numbers is this piece right here, that the decimal is the word and. The decimal is the only place you will ever use the word and in a sentence, in writing a number. So for example, if we have the number 612.54, well, one, if you're reading it that way, if you're reading it as 612.54, you're pronouncing it incorrectly or reading it incorrectly. And two is that the decimal is the word and. So the way this number should be read is 612 and 54. Let's go ahead and make a point of that. And then it's not just and 54, it's 54 hundredths. Put a hundredths right there. So the way this works is when we read decimal numbers is the decimal is always the and. The number after the decimal is read as a normal number, so I'll just say and 54, and then the I put on the end is the place value of the last digit. So this is 612 and 54 hundredths. Right? Now let's see ways that this can change. What if I have the following number? We'll go underneath it. Yeah. Let's say we have 612 and 054. How does that change the number? Well, we do know that this is and, right? So we have 612 and. Now what about the 0? Do I read 054? No. I'm going to continue to read the number as I see it. The number is just 54, right? So I have 612 and 54, but what will change is the place value. The place value has changed from hundredths to thousandths. So I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So this is 612 and 54 thousandths. Let's try it one more time. Let's add a second zero in there. Let's see how this changes. So let's say I have 612 and 0054. What's the proper way to read this? Well, the and stays the same, the 54 stays the same. What changes is I went from tenths, hundredths, thousandths to 10,000ths. So I would read this as 612 and 54 10,000ths. Now, how do I write all of these in words? Whoop. We'll switch over to blue, and maybe we'll zoom out just a tad. I'll adjust some focus. Oops, that might have been the wrong direction. Was it? What makes it? Oh, that's definitely the wrong direction. That looks good enough. All right, so let's write these in words. So this first one would be 600 12, and I'm going to make a big deal about the word and, so that way you hopefully never mess it up, and 50-4, because 54 is in between 20 and 100. Oops. Let's adjust our paper here. 54, and then thousandths. Sorry, not thousandths. I was confused. Hundredths. So 54, and then I'll just put the word hundredths on the end. Period. So this is my number, 612 and 54 hundredths. The way that this number would change is it would be exactly the same. I would still have 612 and 50-4, but it would be thousandths. See, so the only change here when we add the zeros is the place value number, and then the last one would still be the same, 612 and 50-4, and then the last word would then be 10 thousandths to show the place value. 10 thousandths. Whoops, I need my THS. There, 10 thousandths. Oh, I made the same mistake up here, thousandths. All right, so make sure when you're writing decimal numbers you add the THS. I got it the first time and then I lost focus moving down as I was trying to write quickly. So make sure we add thousandths, 10 thousandths, and hundredths on your place value for decimal numbers. Okay, so that'll get us through writing decimal numbers and reading decimal numbers. So let's see here. What is our next practice problem? Rounding decimal numbers. So let's talk about how to round decimal numbers. Rounding decimal numbers works exactly like rounding whole numbers. It follows all the same rules, except there's one extra thing, which is you don't need all the extra zeros at the end. So let's take this next example. We'll only do one of these examples because they're not too much different. We have 212 and let's see here. This is 165,725 100 millionths. Let's see here. Tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10 thousandths, 100 thousandths, millions, 10 millionths, 10 millionths. All right, so this is 165,725 10 millionths. That's how to properly read this number. And let's say I want you to round it to the nearest 10 thousandths place. So first I have to identify the 10 thousandths place. I go to the decimal and I count tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. So this is the decimal place I need to round to. And just like with rounding, if I need to round to that decimal place, I need to look at the number immediately to the right. I look at that 7, and then I ask myself, is that 7 a 5 and up or a 4 and the same? So let's see here. It is 5 and up. So does the 7 go up or does the 5 go up? The 5 goes up. So the 5 goes up to a 6. So this gets rewritten as 212, 0, 1, 6. That 5 changes to 6. And then normally I would write 0, 0, 0 for those last 3 numbers, right? Well, this is where decimal rounding changes. And a decimal number having zeros at the end does nothing to change the number. So when you're rounding decimal numbers, the last step is to completely remove those zeros and write your final answer. Whoops. And write your final answer without them. So the final answer would be 212 and 166 10 thousandths. And then we're done. So that's for rounding decimal numbers, and we've already done that. Wait, was there anything else? Oh, they had adding and subtracting decimal numbers. Let me see here. Adding and subtracting decimal numbers does not change much from the algorithms that you're doing in 6th grade or before in previous math books. So I'm not going to go ahead and add those onto this video. If you do need help with those, let me know. That is something I can show you off to the side. But the main thing with adding and subtracting decimals is make sure that decimal point's lined up. If you have any other questions, please let me know, and I will see you in the next video.